everyone, welcome. This is India Tonight. I'm Shabani Gharat. Now, it's a historic move in Parliament. The Women's Reservation Bills of April 17, 2026, the 131st Constitution Amendment Bill, has failed to pass the Lok Sabha, falling short of the required two-third majority. The bill sought to bring 33% female reservation into effect by 2029 through a massive controversial restructuring of the electoral constituencies. Now, it has got rejected in Lok Sabha. NDA has failed to secure the two-third majority in Lok Sabha. NDA got 278 votes. India Bloc got 211 votes, on which Karan Rijiju, the Union Minister of Parliament Affairs, said that the bill failed as the opposition did not support such a historic bill, stating the centre will fight for women's rights in Parliament. To discuss, the fall of the Constitution Amendment Bill, we are joined in by Shivesh Pratap Singh, who's a political analyst, and Madhavan Narayanan, who's a senior journalist. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on ET Now today. Let's speak to you, Mr. Shivesh Pratap Singh. What were, the blocks in securing that two-third majority in the Parliament today?
Yeah, so in the current consideration, the ruling government actually trying to brought this kind of 33% female representation along with the delimitation. So that was very constructive favor for this successful implementation of the female representation with a very swift establishment with the current talent pool. Because generally what was happening, because opposition was saying that, this is the female representation along with the delimitation, they were not accepting this. But as of now, if, we have the policymakers in our parliament, and if we will remove them and without any delimitation, we will accept this kind of female representation, then there will be a, the talent pool gap will be there. Aside to this, with this delimitation, this 33% female representation will be, could be able to adopt in a very, the pragmatic way in the parliament. But, unfortunately, we were falling short of the, the votes about it.
Right. So you're essentially saying that linking, the Women's Reservation Bill to, the delimitation was a primary cause of the failure. Your initial reaction, Mr. Madhavan Narayan, on, the failing of the bill, what was the primary deal breaker according to you? And did you expect this to happen today?
Yeah, in fact, I just shared on X my tweet yesterday saying that this is doomed to failure. This is designed to be doomed. This was, the government, according to me, was fully aware that this would be defeated. They are here to manage the narrative that the opposition is not in favor. Not only there are 5-6 layers of complexity in the constitutional amendment bill, beginning with the fact that a constitutional amendment bill needs a two-thirds majority that requires a political consensus on broader lines. This bill was never discussed in spite of having a complex layer of factors, including the number of seats in parliament, the census that is still taking place. The current parliament is based on the 1971 census breakup that has been frozen from the mid-70s. Now, 2011 is a sudden census number that the government wanted to bring in, and then link it to delimitation, which is the complete redrawing of Lok Sabha constituencies in many cases, and without any clarity on how the delimitation will take place. So this is all of a sudden clubbing too many issues together in a parliament in which, as it is, if you recall, this is not a BJP government, this is an NDA government, which requires other allies. So if the numbers are in front of you, in fact, your 278 to 11 is a little outdated. I think there was some slip date based voting. So they are now taking it to 298 and 230. It's still woefully short of 360 that the vote required. So very clearly, the government knew it did not have the number. It just made a grandstanding moral appeal, which didn't work, especially because if you look at all the speeches in the parliament during the debate, You should listen to Sashi Tharoor, particularly those who are watching the show and can't get the drift of what is going on, should simply watch 15 minutes of Sashi Tharoor, which is available on YouTube. And you will know that there is issues related to federalism, issues related to backward caste quotas, issues related to whether this amendment should be linked to delimitation of seats at all, and why should census be 1 month away when this bill should be hurried through. And all these issues are so complex, so complicated, and there was not even a parliamentary committee that went into this.
So have, Harsh Dahiya joining us. He's a political analyst and also an advocate at the Supreme Court of India. Mr. Dahiya, legally speaking, does this bill now officially lapse, or does it remain on the register of the pending businesses going forward that allows motion for it to reconsider to vote going forward?
I believe that government will definitely be reconsidering this and representing it after, taking in consideration the amendments that have been asked by the opposition. But the core issue remains that the opposition in its entire, in complete, they are against the entirety of this particular bill. The strange part is that at one hand, the opposition postures itself as a very progressive alliance. The UPA, the Congress, and the NDA alliance, so far we have seen from last 30-40 years that they have been the torchbearers of progressive politics in the country. At least that's what their posturing has been. But with their stance on the Women Reservation Bill and the Delimitation Bill, one thing is clear, that the progressive narrative is just for posturing, but they don't want to, bring these progressive agendas or changes on ground. They should have supported this. What has happened with the failing of this bill in Lok Sabha is that the whole narrative of the opposition has been shattered. They have lost the narrative war as well. Now the government will go out to the public and they will tell the women voters that, see, we were bringing this bill for your representation in legislative assemblies, in Lok Sabha, in Rajya Sabha. But here there is Congress who keeps on shouting that they stand for women right, they stand for jitni abadi utna hak. But when it comes to real enactment, that's when they fail and they refuse to support such bills. Because we have seen this in the Shah Banu judgment as well. When Shah Banu judgment had come, then the Congress government of that time had gone against that particular judgment and had overturned it, in fact. On the other hand, when the triple talaq issue came during the NDA government, or the Modi government as we call it, at that time, Mr. Modi, the Honorable Prime Minister of this country, without thinking what the political repercussions of that would be, what the social repercussions for his government would be, he brought a bill and enacted the triple talaq bill and gave equal rights to Muslim women as well. Whereas it is considered that Muslims are not even voters of the BJP or the Modi government. Even then, Modi government became, did a very progressive, took a very progressive step towards empowerment of Muslim women, and they were doing the same for all women of this country by bringing this bill. But with the failing of this particular bill, I guess they would have a leverage in the narrative war, and the opposition has clearly lost that narrative war. They won't be able to go to the public during elections and justify this particular move.
Right. They have lost the narrative war. But, quickly, we'll continue this discussion. But quickly, let's hear what Congress leader Rahul Gandhi, as he hits out at the government over the Women's Reservation Bill, had to say, calling it an attack on the Constitution. Let's listen in.
कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पर अटैक था, संविधान पर आक्रमण था, और इसको हमने हरा दिया है। हमने क्लियरली बोला है कि ये महिला बिल नहीं है, ये हिंदुस्तान का राजनीतिक जो स्ट्रक्चर है, इलेक्टोरल स्ट्रक्चर है, उसको बदलने की कोशिश है। ये हमने रोक दिया है। और मैं अभी कह रहा हूं, प्रधानमंत्री से कह रहा हूं, अगर आप महिला बिल चाहते हैं, 2023 का महिला बिल निकालिए, उसका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन आज से करिए, और पूरा का पूरा ऑपोजिशन 100% आपको समर्थन देगा, और महिला बिल हम इमीडिएट इम्प्लीमेंटेशन करा देंगे।
Right. Also from, the legal status perspective, if you can help us understand what is the legal status of the withdrawn, companion bills, Mr. Dahiya, if you can help us understand that, since the government has withdrawn the delimitation bill and the UT laws bill following the failure, do these bills also lapse entirely?
No, I guess, I still have to see what has happened because I've been called very last minute for this particular debate. Seeing the previous things that have happened, what I believe is that the government is going to bring some amendments. They are going to possibly form a JPC wherein these, bills will be debated by the Joint Parliamentary Committee, and they would suggest more amendments. They would have more dialogues with the opposition and what kind of amendments are to be brought in these particular bills. And then they will be reintroduced in the parliament, because delimitation and women reservation and all the other bills, these are the need of the hour. Delimitation is needed because, the representation of public representatives, they are representing a growing population, but the number of public representatives have remained the same. And now there is need to increase that particular that representation. And that's why this delimitation bill becomes extremely important and becomes the need of the hour.
Mr. Shivesh Pratap Singh, to what extent did the fear of losing seats in the southern states drive the opposition to the delimitation clause? Because, as Mr. Dahiya mentioned, that they have, the opposition has lost, the narrative battle for the next elections.
So if you see on this, I mean, it was a very well-planned, the coupling of the delimitation and this Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam. So these both are coupled in a way that, in either way, it will benefit to the Modi government. So let's say, as the other, the speaker was telling, that now the government will go, the Modi government and the BJP will go into the states, and they said that the opposition actually restricted us to pass this women bill. And by this way, they will target for the 50% of the demography in terms of the, the population. Aside to this, if we talk about the delimitation, which was the painful matter for the southern states, so for them also, if it was not successfully passed in the parliament, and because of that, at this point of time, it was like a status quo for them. And it will give the further, the consensus building for the BJP and other parties. But aside to this, like Amit Shah earlier said, that it will always be into the same proportion, like, in Karnataka or Tamil Nadu, whatever the percentage they are now sharing, like 5%, approx 5%. When this delimitation will happen, then also the percentage will be same, like 5% only. So by these ways, they are trying to convey this thought. But aside to this, BJP know very well that Hindi heartland have more voters for them. And because of that, if they will get, by this delimitation, they will get more seats in the Hindi heartland, it will ultimately give the benefit to BJP and Modi government. So from both the ways, I mean, it was a well-planned coupling of the delimitation and the this Women Reservation Bill, and in either ways there will be a benefit for the Modi government. So I believe that if it has not been passed, so they will go with the with this notion that the opposition actually restricted us to pass this bill, and because of that they are now stopping the 50% of the population, like females, to stopping to come into the parliament for the representation of the people. So by that way also, if they are losing something for the delimitation in the southern state, but they will definitely gain something in terms of the this female representation topic.
Right, absolutely. Now, before we continue the discussion, let's get on to some more reactions. We have Akhilesh Yadav and Priyanka Gandhi and their reaction, but the discussion will continue on the other side.
आरक्षण की बात नहीं थी, ये देश के लोकतंत्र की बात थी, ये देश की अखंडता की बात थी। हम कभी इससे सहमत नहीं हो सकते कि आप इस महिला आरक्षण को इस तरह से परसीमन से जोड़ें कि वो पुरानी जनगणना पर चले, जिसमें ओबीसी शामिल भी नहीं है। तो ये मुमकिन ही नहीं था कि ये बिल पारित हो, और मेरे ख्याल से हमारे देश के लोकतंत्र के लिए, हमारे देश की अखंडता के लिए ये एक बहुत बड़ी जीत है।
क्या बोलें इसके लिए। जो हमारा पक्ष था वो हमने अपना पक्ष बिल्कुल साफ रखा है, और लगता तो ये कि फिर गाड़ी थमी रह गई, लगता कोशिश में कुछ कमी रह गई होगी। और हम महिला आरक्षण के पक्ष में हैं। महिलाओं को आरक्षण मिले, उनको सुरक्षा मिले, उनका सम्मान बढ़े, उनको स्थान मिले, और लोकतंत्र में जो उनको स्थान मिलना चाहिए उसके पक्ष में।
Mr. Narayan, your reaction on how will this impact government's narrative heading into the next cycle of the state elections?
I think they are this is just a narrative war in which progressivism has many dimensions. That has federalism, in which the states outside the Hindi heartland also matter. For them, this is a sentimental matter involving a share of each state. The proportion of seats may increase, but the relative share of each reference to Rajya Sabha in this bill, and Rajya Sabha also matters for the state. So in the case of a joint session of parliament, the Lok Sabha can overwhelm the Rajya Sabha, and Rajya Sabha is technically means the council of the states. That erodes the state power. And then there are issues related to OBCs, in which there is caste census issues that the Congress has been talking about as a representative of OBC. So social justice involving affirmative action for backward caste is also progressivism. Gender-based quota for women is also progressivism. What we are going to head for is a battle of narratives involving various dimensions of progressive politics in India, in which the BJP wants to put its foot forward with the women angle, where are other angles also there, because the preamble of the Constitution promises political, social, and economic justice. And therefore, there are also issues related to constitutional amendment that might go to the Supreme Court, because the Constitution is not abundantly clear, as far as I know, on federalism-related aspects, which is what very important for southern states and the northeastern states. So I think it's a complicated issue, and please understand the delimitation issue also involves who is going to be appointed in the delimitation commission,
Right.
and how it will go about aligning seats. So I think this is very important. The rhetoric will go on. Rhetoric will go on from both sides, particularly the BJP, which has made it very clear with their speeches by Mr. Amit Shah and Mr. Modi. But as the numbers in the parliament show, all these Lok Sabha MPs will not be voting against the bill if they had any idea that this was so emotive. So it's not as emotive as it's being made out to be.
Right. Mr. Dahiya, final word from you. Had this bill been passed, would it have survived the challenge of the Supreme Court, from a legal standpoint, if you can help us understand regarding the basic structure of the Constitution? Because we have had like a couple of guests on the show also over the past few days who called this completely non-constitutional.
No, from my understanding, I don't understand why this would be unconstitutional. Because see, Women Reservation Bill has already been passed, and now the delimitation has happened is supposed to happen from time to time. There was a freeze until 2026. So after 2026, the delimitation is due, and it is a constitutional process. So for delimitation, bill to pass, had that passed, then some constitutional challenge to it. There would be constitutional challenges. People would go to the Supreme Court, people would challenge it. But I don't think that would have been a very serious matter, because it is a constitutional exercise. It is long pending, and it has been on freeze until 2026. And after 2026, delimitation has to happen. And something that has to happen, and if the government is doing it at this time, then the opposition should have supported it, and opposition could have made some narrative in their favor as well with the Women Reservation Bill and the Delimitation Bill. And suggested some amendments, had a good debate on it, which was already going on. There was such good debate happening in the parliament. Had it passed, then that would have been a good thing for the country, because delimitation is constitutionally due. And if something is constitutionally due, then how can it be constitutionally wrong? I don't understand that, at least.
Yeah, Mr. Shivesh Pratap Singh and also Mr. Narayan for joining us today on ET Now. Your inputs and insights were really helpful to understand, this whole process, and also how NDA failed to get the 2/3 majority for passing this bill. Thank you so much for joining us again.